So, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty Fan Podcast. Got a great show for you today talking about our top 5 waiver wire ads for week 10 at the running back wide receiver position. We got a game going on, though. We got likely going on, man, in the captain spot. So, I'm feeling pretty good about that in DFS. Might win me some breakfast money for tomorrow. So, getting started, we got at the QBs. It's not great. Hopefully, guys, you were tuned in last week and you picked up our number one QB, which was Justin Fields, because he's got some solid matchups coming up and he crushed this past week. So, hopefully, you have Fields and you don't have to worry about the QB position because it's getting ugly here, right? At below 50%. If you're just joining us for the first time, guys, what we do on the show, we always talk about our top QB or tight end ads, usually one or two at the position, and then we go into our top 5 ads. Everybody here on the show is under 50% rostered. So if you see somebody that you think should be on here, it's probably because they're over 50% in their roster percentage. And then at the end, we got the strikeout ads. I spelled it wrong. Strikeout ads at the end. And in that, we just talk about, hey, you wake up, you missed your guy. We give you guys a couple of extra bonus options that are probably most definitely going to be on your waiver wire. So just some guys with some upside for the weeks to come that maybe you could stash ahead of time. So here we go. Going into our QBs for this week, we got Daniel Jones 40% rostered, Mariota 39% rostered, and then Sam Darnold just for the Superflex leagues, right? It's looking like in Carolina they sat benched PJ Walker, they brought in Baker Mayfield, and he looked decent, right, for that half. Now they're saying that they're going back to PJ Walker, right, this next week. And also, you got Sam Darnold activated now off of the IR, so he may get a shot pretty soon here. We'll see. So just suspect to divide in your Superflex leagues where quarterbacks are pretty much all rostered. And then for the one QB, though, I think I might like Mariota over Daniel Jones. I do like Daniel Jones. Both guys we like just because of the upside. I mean, we're not in love with these guys, but for the rushing upside, I think Mariota, he's got Carolina again, and his last visit with Carolina, he had 22 fantasy points. He's facing them again here in week 10, so it could be a good little streaming option for you. Daniel Jones got the Texans, so not too great of a matchup, but I like Daniel Jones still just because of the rushing upside that we've seen, right? That he's displayed so far. So out of these guys, Ryan, I know it's not pretty, but who you prefer over these two options right here?
Well, like you said, hopefully people were smart and picked up Fields his last couple of weeks because he's been balling. I think Justin Fields, I read that he's the number one quarterback the last 4 weeks for fantasy. So hopefully have Justin Fields. He really been saving me these last couple of weeks in a couple of super flex redraft leagues that we have. With all the bye weeks to my running backs, but the points that we're getting from the super flex position from Justin Fields as my second quarterback, tied to Patrick Mahomes in a lot of those leagues, has really been saving me. But as far as regular leagues, standard or PPR one QB league, I like Daniel Jones, man. I mean, for bye weeks, right? I'm not talking about every week, but if you need somebody that can get you, 16 to 20 points, he does have a lot of rushing upside. And he plays the Texans this week, which is a pretty favorable matchup. And so out of these guys, I probably try to throw Daniel Jones in there. And according to Sleeper, he's probably available on your waiver wire. So
Yeah, both guys under 50% rostered. Daniel Jones at 40, Mariota 39, so pretty much exact same roster percentage. So now we're going to be moving into our tight ends. And this guy, we wanted you to stash him over the buy. I said on the last week, I wouldn't mind if you had him, if you had some room to stash him already, get him for free, because I think he'll be a popular name, man. That's Greg Dulcich. He's had some solid games. He's finally pretty much took over, right? They've had healthy scratches for Albert O, which is pretty crazy, man, because we had some buzz about Dulcich probably competing for that tight end one in preseason spot. And I thought, nah, no way. I thought it was just training camp hype and all that. So I was like, no, I didn't think so. But now we've seen it really. And 71% weeks 6 and snap percentage, then 59, then 80 this past in week 8. Was on by this for week 9. But he had 12, 11, and 12 fantasy points. So pretty solid, man. Even an 87-yard day this last game in week 8. So I like Greg Dulcich for your weeks ahead. And even just if you're just struggling at tight end, I think he's a solid little floor play with just 12, 11, 10. I mean, that's pretty good in your tight end position. Cade Otton, I think he's okay. The only thing, he's 18% roster, but the only thing to monitor is Cameron Brate is already practicing. So really, we like Cade Otton. That he had his best night this past week. I think he had 18 fantasy points for Cade Otton. He has 17.80. So he was a tight end 4 on the week, but that was because we've had no Cameron Brate for these past few weeks. But he's already practicing, so he might be back soon. This is his 4th week that he would miss if he were to miss, and they didn't put him on IR, right, with that neck injury. So just something to monitor. So what do you think, right, out of these two tight ends?
Well, I like Dulcich, man. I mean, it seems like he's starting to make some plays down the field. He's on the field for a big snap percentage, and he seems to be getting some chemistry with Russell Wilson. So, out of these guys, I'd probably prefer Dulcich. But in a pinch, if I had to start, Cade Otton or Oten, whatever his name is, I would definitely be okay with that. He actually did pretty well for me this past week. I had him in some DFS lineups. I went really
Nice.
cheap at tight end to pay up for guys like Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson. It worked out pretty good for me in a couple of spots. So, yeah, it just depends on if Braid's back or not. But we definitely know that Brady loves to throw to tight ends, man, since, he's been in the league with the Patriots, right? So,
Exactly, man. So now we're moving on, going to do our top 5 waiver wire ads. So coming in at number 5, he was on bye, so he's been dropped. He's only at 44% rostered, but Wan'Dale Robinson. And I think worth mentioning also is Darius Slayton, man. So Darius Slayton, only 10% rostered, but he's been pretty solid as well. 14 and 11 fantasy points his last 2 outings, 6 targets both of those games. And then you have Wanda Robinson. We just like him, just the upside of him, right? Just that rookie coming in. He's already showed some flashes in week 6 and 7, double-digit fantasy points, both of those games. His targets has increased, right? From week 6, he only had 4, then he went to 8. A little down game in week 8 against Seattle. Now they got Houston coming off a bye. Hopefully he's getting a little bit more calibrated into the offense. So I like Wanda Robinson coming off of his bye. And for these next few weeks, just in your flex or just someone even just to monitor, right, and have on your roster if we see a little second half of the year breakout for Wando.
yeah, I like both these guys, man. Like, I think one of these guys, week to week is going to be somebody that we can start, right? I mean, I don't know if they're right. It's like because I picked up Slayton, I played him in a couple weeks, in a couple of spots, and it seemed like those weeks that Wan'Dale Robinson went off, or it was a Wan'Dale Robinson game, and then I dropped
Yeah,
Slayton, and then the next week I swear Slayton, it was a touchdown game for him. So I don't know if they'll both be continue to be productive, but I think week to week one of them will be productive enough as a flex spot. So
for sure, man. So going into number 4, another wide receiver got Terrace Marshall, only 11% rostered. And now with that trade of Robbie Anderson, now with him being shipped off, Terrace Marshall, man, 80% of the snaps plus, right? 80 plus percent of the snaps the last 3 weeks. So now he's finally getting opportunity. He had 9 targets last week, which was solid. Then he gets 6 this week, 14 fantasy points, gets his first touchdown. We talked about it on our takeaways. Just he's a big body receiver, 6'2", 200. And they're using him really. They're looking for him in the red zone. He had another one that he missed, right? Another touchdown where they just didn't connect. So I like Terrace Marshall, man. He's got some sneaky upside for these next weeks. They got Atlanta and Baltimore. So he's got 2 solid matchups these next 2 weeks. So I like him as a little speculative ad. I'm not trying to play him. In a pinch, I don't mind, I guess, right, in your flex. But really just somebody to add to your bench, right? Someone with maybe some upside. And we'll see what happens these next few weeks. Because definitely if he has a big game and against Atlanta or Baltimore, which is possible, I think his value could definitely shoot up after these next 2 weeks.
yeah, I agree, man. I definitely like him a lot more like in DFS lineups as a cheap wide receiver who can get a touchdown like he did this past week. And then the other thing, I really like him in Dynasty, man. I'm acquiring some shares of him in Dynasty just because I think that overall that situation is going to be better next year. I just can't see them, going with, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and PJ Walker, right? I think that something's going to have to happen there. They're going to have to make some move for a veteran or another quarterback, maybe possibly a rookie. And so I like Terrace Marshall, right? No Robbie Anderson. He's been getting the bulk of the snaps. Like he's over 90% snap percentage in that offense. And that's what you want. You want guys that are on the field. And now also too with McCaffrey gone, man. We know McCaffrey, we knew he was a huge target monster, right? A target hog. So there's a lot of vacated targets in that offense for next year, right? like I said, for Dynasty. And so I'm acquiring some shares of him. I got him in a couple leagues for like third round picks. And then in one league, I actually just got him off of just waivers. You know, it's a 10
Yeah.
team dynasty, but a super flex, but he was actually
I
available
think
on
I dropped
waivers.
him. I think
Yeah,
I dropped him.
yeah, he was available on waivers, man. So I scooped him up for $0. You know, so something to think about for those of us that play Dynasty. Check your Dynasty rosters.
Yeah, for sure. I dropped him in one. It might not have been that 10 team. I think I dropped him in that Texas Champs, the 12 team league. I just dropped him maybe like week 4 or 5. So definitely stinks that he's coming on. Someone picked him up right away too. So going into our number 3 ad, number 3 top ad is he was on our show last week also. Mecole Hardman, man, still under 50% rostered, 46% rostered, and he's had some big games, man. Week 7, he was the wide receiver 3 with 28 fantasy points. Then he follows it up right after the bye. Week 9 against Tennessee gets you 19.9 fantasy points. Wide receiver 6 also on the week for week 9. So 9 targets. That's his most targets that he's had so far this season, right? He's only been getting like 4 or 5, so that was a little bit concerning. But he's making plays, man. Similar to like a Gabe Davis, right? Not too many targets, but this week 9, he had 9 targets. So that's good to see for Mecole, man. So I think he's a good little ad for your fantasy rosters. Got Jacksonville coming up, then the Chargers, so Mecole, if he's out there on your waiver wire, I think he's a good little guy you can have with some boom potential in your flex for these coming weeks.
Yeah, he's exactly the type of player you want in your flex, man, especially if you have a lot of guys on bye and you're projected to lose. He's exactly the type of player you want to flex in your lineup because he has a capability of going for 20 or 30 points, right? It can help win you your week. And so I did pick him up in a couple leagues just before the bye week, right after he had a good game. And so I actually had to start him in one league this past week, and he had 19, like you said, 19 points, got a touchdown. He's the field stretcher, man. He is stretching the field for Mahomes. He has chemistry with Mahomes, and so I think it's something that will probably continue moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like Tony too. I'm curious to see his roster percentage. It's probably low too, but Tony's a good little speculative ad. Maybe for the strikeout ads, we could have put him on there. So moving on, going to our number 2 ad, we have Chuba Hubbard, 45% roster right now. So he looked solid, right? The past week that he was in for week 7, pretty much 50-50 split, right? With Deontay Foreman was RB21, went 9 for 63, got you a couple of receptions. So I like Chuba going forward, right? A lot of people rostered him, but once he was declared out, they dropped him. But it looks like he was kind of a surprise out for me when I saw because he was kind of limited and they thought he was looking like he was gonna play. It was what they were saying. Then he's out. So I think he could be back this week. I think he's a sneaky little ad right now for you on your fantasy rosters.
Yeah, because the other thing I think that's important is, man, the Panthers are not very good, right? No matter who the quarterback is, they're probably going to be trailing in a lot of these games, right? And we saw this past week with playing the Bengals, if they're trailing, they're not going to be running the ball with Foreman. They're going to be throwing the ball, right? And that leads us to the pass catching back, which this past week it was Blackshear, right? But we would normally, we would think normally it's going to be Chuba Hubbard in there, right? And so if Chuba's available and it's a good positive a negative game script where you think they're going to probably be behind and chasing points, he's probably going to have a good chance to catch some passes and maybe get a touchdown. So definitely like that Chuba Hubbard call because I started Foreman in a lot of leagues because I'm devastated at running back with injuries. And he just disappointed, right? And I think he had like 4 or 5 points. So
Yeah, we don't want to talk about Foreman, man. So moving on, number 1 waiver wire ad for week 10 is going to be Jeff Wilson, man. And he was had a high roster percentage also. But then with that CMC trade, right, he got dropped in a lot of leagues under 50% now rostered in only 48% of leagues on sleeper. But Jeff Wilson comes in and he just fits right at home, right, in that offense. He comes in, gets 50% of the snaps, pretty much 49% of the snaps, RB7 on the week, 9 for 51. So he pretty much outdoes Mostert. Mostert had 9 carries, but I think he only had like 26 yards or something. But Jeff Wilson looked solid, man. He looked right at home, went a couple of receptions, got a receiving touchdown as well. 16 fantasy points this week. So I think he's a solid little ad for your fantasy rosters for these coming weeks ahead. So, what do you think, man, about Jeff Wilson?
I like it, man. It's the same. It's a very similar offense, right? The quarterback coming, I mean, the coach coming from the 49ers, right? He
Mhm.
brought over Mostert, and then now he's brought over Wilson. It's a very similar offense as far as running, and so he fit right in. And he did well. So I'm desperate, and so in a couple leagues, I'm probably going to be pretty much spending all my fab, man, to try to get Jeff Wilson just because I think he's a valuable handcuff. And he's not even a handcuff, like you said, he's getting about 50% of the workload. But if Raheem Mostert gets hurt, which is highly likely, I mean, I'm not trying to, I don't wish for anybody to get hurt, but the fact that he's been this healthy is kind of surprising, right?
Yeah.
This far into the season, he's usually hurt by now. And so, if he were to get hurt, I mean, Jeff Wilson, his percentage goes up to 60 to 70%. I mean, he really, could be somebody that we can trust moving forward as a running back.
Yeah, for sure. And Mostert is already pretty much banged up. I think that's why they made this move, right? They brought him in right away. Obviously, they like him, right? Jeff Wilson. But they brought him in, plugged him in right away. So I know Mostert was on the injury report with a knee already, right? Knee banged up a little bit. So I like Jeff Wilson, like you said, going forward for the rest of these weeks. Definitely has some upside and can take over that backfield, right? I can see him getting a bigger share, right? Just naturally. So definitely a good ad for you for this week. And now moving into our strikeout ads, I'm going to give you a few names, right? You tell me if any of these, if you're liking any of these guys, you fill in any of these names. We have for our strikeout ads, you wake up in the morning, you missed out on your guys. OBJ might be on somebody's list, right? So he might not be a strikeout ad, but he's really just a speculative ad because it's going to take a couple of weeks. But I think he's a good little ad for you right now because there's a lot of buzz. He's already going to be cleared to practice, and the Cowboys are rumored to be really interested in OBJ. So if he were to get cleared and then signed like this week, like on Thursday, Friday, right, or Wednesday, he's someone that you just want on your roster already. So I think you wake up, he's still out there, or you can even put a $0 bid, maybe $1 bid, and stash OBJ now because it could pay off for you in a couple of weeks. You may be waiting a while, but could pay off. And then you have Raheem Blackshear, man. He got some receiving work with Carolina, right? They went down. He was a surprise. He got you 15 fantasy points, I believe. So if for some reason Chuba Hubbard is not back, right? Blackshear is someone that you could definitely put on your roster and probably play in a pinch, right, in your flex spot. You got some decent work in that backfield of Carolina. Then you got DeAndre Carter with the injuries of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I don't think Keenan Allen's going to be back again, man, for this week. We'll see about Mike Williams. But I don't think Mike Williams is going to be back either. So DeAndre Carter is just a good little, floor play in your flex, right? Get you 10 points, going to get you some targets. And DPJ as well, man. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's been pretty solid. Getting you double-digit fantasy points for like the past 4 weeks. Snap percentages looks good. Then you got Deshaun coming back pretty soon, right? So DPJ is another guy that you might want to stash on your rosters. So out of these names, right, who do you think you like on here?
Well, if I'm thinking like I need a win right now and I have a bunch of players on by, I need somebody to help me this week, it's probably DeAndre Carter, man. Because like you said, I just don't see how Keenan Allen is going to be healthy. I just don't see that happening
Yeah.
by what he's been telling us. Basically, he told us that over the bye week, it actually got worse. He tweaked it or did something over the bye week, and now he's not going to play till he's 100% healthy. That might be next year, man. So, and I do like OBJ also, but I just, he's going to take a while for him to help us. So if you need somebody to help you this week as a wide receiver, I would say it's DeAndre Carter, man, because he's going to be in there, right? No Mike Williams, no Josh Palmer. He's tied to a good offense. He had, I think, 6 or 7 targets this past week. So he's somebody that if I had to, play this week, I'd say him. For the long haul, I like OBJ, man. I mean, I've never really been an OBJ huge fan, but I mean, last year, man, he came on really strong with the Rams
Yeah.
before the injury. So, and I think the big thing is if he goes to the Cowboys, at least where we're at here in Texas, there's a lot of Cowboys fans, man, and a lot of OBJ fans. So if that marriage happens, I think he'll have trade value.
Yeah. Even if he just gets signed, yeah. Even if
Yeah.
he doesn't know how to play before he plays, if he just gets signed, I think during the week,
You
he's
could
gonna have some definitely trade value for
You could
sure.
package him and another like player and maybe move up and get something a little better. I don't know. Just something
Yeah.
I was thinking about.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, so that's all we have for you guys today. Hopefully you like the show. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on Apple and Spotify, and check out some of our videos down below as well.